Hello and welcome to the Two Ball Brothers and a Microphone podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. I'm here with the other host, Tommy Ryan. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing well.
We're hosting ourselves here today.
Yes.
Tom, I have to warn everyone. Tommy has a coffee in front of him. He doesn't often have a coffee in front of him.
You might have to slow the speed down by
I can slow the speed
50%.
down. Yes. So it's not very often that he has coffee in front. You're more of a tea drinker, aren't you, Tommy?
I am. I'll have tea today too.
You'll have tea today too. Great. Right. It's gonna get interesting.
I had a workout this morning. I got coffee.
Gosh.
Got my protein shake on. I'm just rocking it this morning.
So, and then we want to talk about a heated subject this morning, which is has to do with what we are calling Project Cobbler, which is our internal project, and sort of how would we apply a workshop that we have called the Digital Workplace Workshop to our own needs, and sort of going through. And
How novel.
I looked at it yesterday, and it was like 5:24 earlier this year, where I said, "Hey Pete, why don't we do this for our own purposes?" So it's only been three or so months, and we went through some of the content and have had lots of discussions and hashed and rehashed again. And sort of looking at the decisions for how we're using Office 365. And I just have to say, I'm confused as hell. I know there's simple, and it's part of it probably has to do when you're trying to solve somebody else's problem. It's very clear. And then when you go and look at your own stuff, it's not so clear. But there's just been a lot of interesting decisions that we've made, and we're fortunate that Pete has can go and implement a lot of these decisions, and we can try things and back things out, and we've made a lot of progress though. But I think for today, a lot of what we're looking at is we have our intranet. We call it the cafe, which is. You like coffee, tea, and it's really our place to across the entire organization. Across the 10,000 people that work at ThreeWill, their place to go. Their place to go to share ideas, to all collaborate together. And we moved it from where we have it right now. We have a team set up, a Microsoft team set up for our cafe, and we're using that as sort of like the central point that everybody has to collaborate. And so that is our homepage. That's one of the things that we did, is now we redirect the ThreeWill.SharePoint.com over to this particular team, and we're calling that's our. It's got a back-end SharePoint site to it that you can go and look at, but really we're seeing a lot of people just being in teams all day long.
Right, because it's simple. I think, the biggest challenge with this is having so many options.
Yeah. And
the double-edged sword of being in this business of helping people with their intranets is we know too much. Yeah. And we know all that detail. We tend to try to perfect something that sometimes it's got to be just good enough. And realizing that there's going to be edges. It's that common problem that we've seen over the years with SharePoint, which is you always get 80% there. And you go down a path and you feel like, crap, I want that, but if I do that, I need to approach it this way. And when I approach it this way, I get another thing that I want that makes me go back to where I was before.
Right.
And that can be frustrating. And I think some of it has to do with what is your work style? What's the culture that you have, and how do you get work done? And pick the better of the two evils at the end of the day.
So for people who don't, we're a 25 to 30 person companies, small
not 10,000?
No, not 10,000.
Gosh.
So we don't have the same, and a part of this is approach wise. In going into this project, one of the key tenets that we covered was we're not going to design and build something that we would for our clients. So get over it, guys. This is not going to be the world's perfect solution to our, we just don't have
got to be
it's got to work for us.
It's got
to work for a small
hit,
company.
Yeah,
so going into that, what we've done, what's happened is we've tried to say, okay, of the Microsoft, of the 18 different tools within Microsoft, which ones are working, which ones are we willing to move forward with, where's Microsoft investing, what works well for. We also talked about our culture and sort of, we're very collaborative. We love to, people like sharing it a lot. And so which tools were working. And one of the things we did about maybe a year or 2 years ago, maybe even, is we stopped using Yammer. And probably people are going like, well, why the heck
what's
would you
Yammer?
Yeah, Yammer. Why would you stop using Yammer? And I still use it, like I was on it this morning, but it's for collaboration for like Microsoft partner stuff. So I still use it. It's just outside the organization. But I think people were just getting so like we were replicating things. There were things in Yammer that should have been in SharePoint, and then Teams came along, and we're like, whoa, like people can't. That we're overwhelming people with these things, and so we made a decision and moved forward with that. And then what I think some of the stuff that I looked at with this was a while back we moved off of Jive and into SharePoint, and at that point in time we moved file-based content over, which is fine. I think some of those files are being updated, but a lot of the what was Jive collaborative documents got moved to wikis. And now I know nowadays we're looking at, we're moving, or we're in the process of moving people to SharePoint modern pages, which I think is the better experience and the right way of going. But we moved them over to the wiki pages, and they weren't being updated. I mean, there were like in some of the places we had hundreds of wiki documents, and only 4 were updated within the last 3 years. And I'm going like, this, either the content was, we don't need it anymore, might be something, or is there something impeding somebody from keeping these things up to date, or I don't know. It was one of those things like, and I think what I'm grappling with right now is that there's content that is sort of short term. There's the ad hoc type of content that a team needs to go get something done, in which I think Microsoft Teams is really trying to focus in around. And then there's this content that is going to be around for as long as ThreeWill is around. And there are things that, like where do I download the ThreeWill font, and where those types of things. And I think, and we're having people work and share through Microsoft Teams, and that's sort of for the ad hoc how we're working today. But then I think I'm mistakenly trying to pull that in, like have everything available from that one place. And now, like yesterday, like an example is Linda has a key HR documents that was in one of the wiki pages, and she was asking like, where does this go? And I ended up moving it over to a modern page that's on the site, and I think that's the right place to go, because what I was looking at then was, and Pete and I have had this conversation, was, well, where does wiki-based content go now? Does it go into, are we all going to use OneNote? I mean, because OneNote is very it's for wiki-based content, can be used. It's a little disjarring because you're having to open the OneNote file, make changes, and say it's more file-based type of world, as opposed to wiki content usually is, you're very quickly making changes, and you're just you're jumping from one wiki to another and just doing things. And it seems to be the modern page is more of that type of interaction. It's browser-based, you're making changes. And Pete said, it may have been early this week, he's like, for the stuff that's long term, it should not be in OneNote. OneNote is there for you for short term, for a team needs to share some notes. It's there. But for long term, we need to be putting it into modern pages. So then I go to Pete. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm in a, you're like, I should be laying on a couch now, and you should be smoking a pipe. And Pete's like, well, for long-term based content, we should have those in modern pages. And so then I go to Pete and I said, well, Pete, here's the obvious thing. We've got, probably 2,000 to 3,000 wiki pages out on our site that are no longer being updated. Why shouldn't there be a way for me to convert those pages from wiki pages to modern pages? Isn't that like isn't everybody going to want to do that? And he's like, yeah, PMP group is working on and so it is something I think people are looking at. I mean, the modern page is what I believe is what people want. And I say the modern page is for wiki base, for things that need to be updated, yet need long-term storage. So it's not like I'm not using a modern page for sharing my notes from the call that we just had with somebody. I'm using OneNote for that.
Right.
And so for me, it's like this. I need this wall for, and I've seen the stuff that's come out with when to use what and the recent stuff of all this stuff. But boy, it seems like I feel like I'm a pretty technical person, but to the average Joe, there's just trying to do things. It's a little overwhelming. I mean, it's a little overwhelming, and so I think I'm just trying to apply some thought to this and try to keep it simple to people so that I can explain to people what's where and not have, well, in this case it goes here, in that case it goes there. Okay, doctor, tell me what
I got some thoughts for you here.
Do you have a pill for me that I can take?
I'm going to make it worth your charge.
Format. Okay, how much are you charging?
I'm expensive here, so let me give you some words of wisdom
Tommy,
here.
Help me.
Well, I think you got to draw analogies to these things, to some things that you experience in the real world of your everyday life.
Uh-huh.
And
I like
think
analogies.
Yeah. So analogy that I've experienced recently is moving to a new house. So you move to a new house. That house has a different design, a different layout. It has different, functions in the house. And you can go and move and just dump everything and spread it across that house, and you really lose the purpose, lose the value of that, lose the experience of its initial intention. And when I think there's a natural progression, for us in our house, we've got everything in the basement that doesn't have purpose yet. And we're kind of evaluating, do we give this to so-and-so? Do we donate this? Does this get refinished and moved to somewhere in the house?
Yeah.
But it's in the basement. It's not cluttering up the beauty of what the house is. And we're being very intentional about what goes into the house and what goes from that basement up to that first floor. Mm-hmm. And as I look at our content, I think we probably have 5% of our content that belongs in the house. 95% of it belongs in the basement. That's over time.
It's a big basement.
We've got a big basement. We put about 80% of our content down there. So I think one of the things that we have to realize is, there's certain content that has value that needs to be brought forward, that needs to have its right place.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some energy and effort to curate that and put it in its right place. And there's going to be some content that you want to have access to, but it's not first class. It's sitting in the basement. And you can get to it, you can search it, you can get to that, but it's not put into the new spaces in your internet or in your house. And I think that's what we struggle with, is we want to bring all that over, and we kind of think, well, all that stuff should be valuable. Why aren't we keeping that up to date? And to be honest with ourselves, we really don't have the time to keep that stuff up to date. And the return on investment of stopping and curating some of that content where we have, and I think this has been a good intentional move for us, is we have said when we have something of value that we're going to curate it, put it out on the public website, put it out on the blog, because that becomes searchable by a larger community. It has purpose that's beyond just helping ourselves. And so Kirk is not spending time to go back and look at a wiki and mature a wiki in our internal knowledge base. He's spending time on that project and curating what needs to be curated on the project. And if he has any time for global knowledge curation, he's going to write a blog post. So we've got to realize that there's a big part of our natural way of collecting information, that some of it is, it's going to have some purpose for a period of time, and then it's going to wane. New technology. I mean, you look at a lot of that old stuff. It's WSS 3.0. It's all these things that don't have purpose anymore.
So, and I think I believe what we're talking about is the fact that that content has a life cycle, and at a certain point it should be archived. It should be there. It should
clean it up.
I think what we're doing, and what we've done with the project, like yesterday, what I ended up doing was going to the old site collections and marking them as read only.
Yes.
So that they're there.
You're on notice.
You're on notice. The content's there. But if you need it, it's read only for a period of time, and who knows, we could leave it there, till whenever. But it's not where the latest version.
I bet all that you could delete, and somehow we would function going.
And somehow
forward.
you function. my concern is not so much that the stuff that leaves over time, that should be archived and should be eventually just is outdated. We don't need it anymore. And I think it's a great point that you make about. We put that stuff out on the website, which is what I try. I mean, I'm like, I recognize the value of content grows exponentially once you get it out onto our website, because other people can see it and other people can comment on it. And so I appreciate you. I agree with you there. And I agree that is the way that we go, and that we focus in on extracting out the nuggets and trying to get it out onto our website.
Yeah, not on a wiki page. I mean, that you've been a big part of that. And I think that makes been sense. A good thing for us. I think it's the wise thing to do. And
that helps justify.
We have limited time.
That helps justify my salary, so I'm cool. I'm very cool with
all that. 30K of
it. Thanks for the raise, Tommy. All right.
You're welcome.
Awesome. That's great. But the thing that concerns me, sort of back to what concerns me, is the and I do this as much. We're Ryan, so I want the stuff that if we've already made the decision, if we've done something where we've worked on it, because heaven knows how many times I've tried to resolve the same problem over and over.
Sure.
Is to make it in a place where we're like we're taking version 1 and version 2 of how we're handling website leads, and not reinventing it every single time, because that's my concern, is losing some of that type of knowledge. And this is where I go, like, there almost should be we have a knowledge base. Calling it almost like, I feel like we should call it something different, like it's something. This is our operations wiki. This is these are the things that, as long as ThreeWill is around, this is knowledge that we should have and we should be iterating on and getting better at. And then there's other stuff that, technology-wise, it's going to change every single year and it just goes away. But I don't know, I'm trying to grapple with the things that should be moving forward, and that should be, version 2 and version 3 as the company progresses. How do we not lose those things? I think that's more of what my concern is.
Yeah. And you don't lose those things. I mean, we have a sales process that we constantly refine what's happening in each of those steps of the pipeline. We have a naming conventions. And those things, some of them, maybe they shouldn't be in OneNote and be in a modern page. But at the end of the day, there needs to be time and energy to collaborate and raise awareness and pointing people back to it.
Yeah.
Like I see people naming estimations in 5 different conventions.
Let's not go down the naming. We could be talking for 2 more hours.
Yeah. So it's like, well, what do? Well, you point people back to it.
Yeah.
You continue to point people back to it because people are busy and they don't have time to go search and find things. Mm-hmm. So there's it's less is more. We've got to continue to say these are the most important pieces of content that naturally everybody knows where it's at because we're always talking about it.
Yep. All right, we have got to run to go get to our
stand-up.
Sales stand-up. So that's it for today. I appreciate your time. It got a little heated. I like it when things get warmed up around here. And thank you everybody for listening. I'm sure there's a lot of people grappling with this out there. And would love to, if you are on the website, leave a comment at the bottom of the blog post there if you guys are grappling with similar types of issues. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in on this, and have a wonderful day. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.